Hello everyone. My name is Linda and I want to tell you a story that happened to my friend Robin. I named this story as, "My parents wanted to sell my country house to buy an apartment for my sister. Mom said she's pregnant now, and she needs her own place. I secretly sold it. 2 weeks later, Dad broke in there, not knowing the buyer was. Well, let's go." So this whole mess started on a Saturday morning when I was just trying to enjoy my coffee in peace. I'm Robin, 32, and I guess I should tell you about my family first because they're kind of the main problem here. My parents are in their late 50s, and let's just say they've always been pretty controlling. Then there's my younger sister Kayla, who's 26 and got married about 6 months ago. She's always been the golden child, you know? The one who could do no wrong while I was just expected to quietly help everyone out financially whenever they needed it. 3 years ago, I bought this small country house up in the mountains. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I loved that place even though I didn't get to visit as often as I wanted to. Work keeps me pretty busy, but whenever I did make it up there, it felt like my little escape from everything. Anyway, that Saturday morning my phone rings at like 8 a.m. It's my realtor, Mike, who helped me buy the house originally. Real nice guy. We had this agreement that if I ever wanted to sell, I'd go through him first. "Hey Robin," he says, sounding confused, "I gotta ask you something. Are you planning to sell your mountain house? Because I just saw it listed online and I thought we had a deal." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" "Mike, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not selling anything." "That's weird," he says. "There's an ad that went up about a week ago. Says it's your house, has all the right details. Even has a contact number, but it's not yours." My stomach started doing flips. "Can you send me the link?" "Sure thing, and hey, if you do decide to sell, I've already got a client who's interested. Guy saw the ad and called me since I handled a lot of properties in that area." After I hung up, I sat there staring at my phone, waiting for that link. When it came through and I clicked on it, I felt like I was going to throw up. There was my house, clear as day, with photos I'd never taken and a description that was way too accurate. But the kicker? The contact person listed was my mother, complete with her phone number. I didn't even hesitate, I called my parents immediately. "Hi honey," Mom answered in that fake sweet voice she uses when she knows she's about to get in trouble. "Mom, what the hell is this ad about my house?" There was this pause, and then she just went completely calm. "Oh, you saw that? Well, yes, we posted it." "Are you kidding me right now? That's my house. Robin, we had to do something. You would never have agreed to sell it on your own." I was pacing around my apartment at this point. Of course I wouldn't agree. It's my property. You can't just decide to sell someone else's house. "Listen," Mom said, and her voice got that tone she uses when she thinks she's being reasonable. "Kayla just got married. She's pregnant now, and she needs her own place. The money from your house would be perfect for a down payment on a nice apartment." "I don't care what Kayla needs," I snapped, "it's not your decision to make." That's when Dad got on the phone. I could hear him in the background before Mom handed it over. "Robin, you need to think about family here," he said. "Remember when we asked you for help with Kayla's wedding? We needed 100,000 and you only gave us 10. A good sister would have paid for the whole thing." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I gave you what I could afford. And now you want to steal my house?" "It's not stealing," Mom took the phone back, "we're family. Kayla barely has anything, and you hardly even use that house. We're up there more than you are. That doesn't matter, it's still mine. Robin, be reasonable, your sister is pregnant and needs help. This is what families do for each other." I tried to stay calm. "Look, even if you wanted to do this, you can't sell my house without my signature." Mom actually laughed at me. "Oh sweetie, we've got that figured out." "What do you mean?" "We have copies of all your documents. Your ID, examples of your signature. We've been handling some of your paperwork for years, remember? This won't be a problem at all." Dad jumped back in. "We'd been planning this for a while, Robin. We know exactly what we're doing." I hung up without another word. After I hung up, I just sat there for a few minutes, staring at the wall. My hands were actually shaking. I kept replaying what my parents had just told me, that they had copies of my ID, samples of my signature, and they were planning to forge documents to sell my house. My own parents were about to commit fraud against me, and they acted like it was no big deal. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This was so typical of them. They'd always treated me like I existed just to solve their problems. Need money for Kayla's wedding? Call Robin. Can't make the mortgage payment? Robin will handle it. And I always did, because that's what I thought good daughters were supposed to do. But this was different. This wasn't them asking for help, this was them stealing from me. And the worst part was how confident they sounded, like they knew I'd just roll over and take it like I always did. Well, not this time. I realized they were probably sitting there right now, congratulating themselves on how they'd handled the situation. They probably thought I'd cry for a day or two, then eventually accept it because family comes first or whatever guilt trip they'd use next. They figured I'd never actually fight back, never call the police, never take them to court. That's when I knew what I had to do. If they wanted to race to sell my house, then we'd have a race. But I was going to win. I called Mike back immediately. "Hey, it's Robin again. About that buyer you mentioned, how serious is he?" "Pretty serious, he's been looking for something exactly like your place for months." "Why, are you thinking about selling after all?" "Yeah, I am, and I need to do it fast, like, really fast." Mike sounded surprised. "How fast are we talking?" "As fast as legally possible. If your buyer can close quickly, I'll knock $10,000 off the asking price. And I'll pay you a speed bonus on top of your regular commission if we can get this done within the week." There was a pause. "If he's really interested and has his financing ready, we could potentially close by next Friday." "Perfect, do it." After I hung up with Mike, I felt this weird rush of adrenaline. For the first time in years, I was taking control instead of just reacting to whatever my family demanded. But I wasn't done. While I waited to hear back about the buyer, I logged into my online banking and started making some changes. First, I removed my parents' access to my accounts. Yeah, I'd given them access years ago when Dad had some health issues and needed help managing bills. That was obviously a mistake. Then I did something I'd been thinking about for months but never had the guts to do. I canceled the automatic payment I'd been making for their mortgage. 2 years I'd been paying that thing, $800 a month, because they were struggling. Well, let's see how much they struggle when they have to actually pay their own bills. Mike called me back Sunday morning with good news. His buyer was ready to move fast. The guy was actually a local sheriff who'd been looking for a quiet place in the mountains, and he had cash ready to go. We could close by Thursday if I could get all my paperwork together. That's perfect, I told Mike, let's do it. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, inspections, and phone calls. But by Thursday afternoon, it was done. The house was sold, the money was in my account, and I finally felt like I could breathe again. The timing couldn't have been better either, because I'd been struggling with my own mortgage payments lately. This money would let me pay it off completely and still have some left over. For the first time in years, I wouldn't be living paycheck to paycheck. But the best part? My family had no idea what I'd done. I didn't tell anyone about the sale. I just sat back and waited for them to figure out that their little scheme had failed spectacularly. I have to admit, there was part of me that felt a little guilty. These were my parents, after all. And Kayla was pregnant and probably did need help. But then I'd remember how they'd laughed when they told me they were planning to forge my signature, and the guilt would disappear pretty quickly. They'd made their choice when they decided to treat me like a bank account instead of a daughter. They'd made their choice when they decided to steal from me instead of asking for help. And now they were going to have to live with the consequences. 2 weeks went by, and I didn't hear anything from them. I was starting to think maybe they'd found another way to get money for Kayla, Or maybe they'd just given up on the whole thing. Part of me was almost disappointed. I'd been looking forward to their reaction when they found out what I'd done. But then, on a Tuesday morning, my phone started ringing, and it didn't stop. First it was Mom, then Dad, then Kayla, then Mom again. I let them all go to voicemail at first, but they just kept calling. Finally, I answered when Mom called for the fourth time. "Robin, what is going on?" She sounded panicked. "I went to the house yesterday with some buyers, and there are new locks on all the doors." "Did you change the locks?" I kept my voice calm and even. "I sold the house, Mom." There was this long silence. Then she started laughing, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was that nervous, hysterical laugh people do when they're in denial. "Very funny, Robin, but seriously, what's with the new locks? The buyers are getting impatient, and this is just making everything more complicated." "I'm not joking, I sold the house last week. Those new locks were installed by the new owners. If you have questions about the property, you'll need to talk to them. I don't own it anymore." And then I hung up. After that I thought that would be the end of it for a while. Boy, was I wrong. My phone started ringing again almost immediately, but this time it was Kayla calling. I let it ring a few times before I picked up. I wasn't really in the mood to deal with her drama, but I was also kind of curious to see how she'd handle the news. "Robin, what the hell is going on?" Kayla's voice was high and panicky. "Mom just called me crying, saying something about new locks at the house. She's not making any sense." "The house is sold, Kayla. I sold it last week." "That's not funny. We've been planning this for months. I already picked out an apartment, I've been looking at furniture, I even hired a designer to do the interior. You can't just sell the house now." I almost laughed, the entitlement was just incredible. "I can sell my own house whenever I want to. It was never yours to begin with. But we need that money. I'm pregnant, Robin, we're trying to start a family here. Then maybe you and your husband should get jobs that actually pay enough to support a family." "You're being cruel, just give Mom the keys to the new locks so we can show the house to buyers. We can work this out." "There are no keys to give you, Kayla. The house belongs to someone else now. Figure out your own life." And I hung up on her too. For the next few days, it was quiet again. I actually started to think maybe they'd finally gotten the message and would leave me alone. I should have known better. The call came from Mike on Monday morning. He sounded really uncomfortable. "Robin, I hate to bother you with this, but I got a call from the new owner of your old house. The sheriff. He said someone tried to break into the property over the weekend. The alarm went off and scared them away, but the whole thing was caught on the security cameras." "Did they catch who it was?" Mike was quiet for a second. "Yeah, they did. Robin, it was your father. The police arrested him." I just sat there for a minute, trying to process what he'd just told me. My dad had actually tried to break into the house. Even after I'd told them it was sold, even after Mom had seen the new locks herself, he'd still gone up there and tried to get in. "The sheriff wanted me to let you know what happened," Mike continued. "He's being pretty understanding about the whole thing since it's family, but legally speaking, your dad attempted to break into a police officer's home." About 5 minutes after I hung up with Mike, my phone rang again. It was Dad, and he sounded frantic. "Robin, you need to call the police right now and explain this whole misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding, Dad?" "Tell them I was trying to get into my daughter's house. Tell them you've always let me have access to that property." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dad, I told you the house was sold. Why would you try to break in? We didn't think you were serious. We thought you were just mad and trying to scare us by changing the locks." "Well, I was serious, and now you're in trouble for trying to break into someone else's property. Robin, please, just call them and straighten this out." "No, Dad, you did this to yourself." He started yelling at me then, calling me selfish and ungrateful, but I just hung up. I was done listening to their guilt trips and manipulation. The next day, I saw the story on the local news. Local man arrested for attempted break-in at sheriff's residence. They didn't mention his name, but they said the suspect had been aggressive during the arrest and had insulted the officers. Apparently, he was facing charges for attempted illegal entry and disorderly conduct. The reporter mentioned he could get up to 6 months in jail. 6 months in jail for trying to steal my house. A week later, Mom called me. She was crying before she even said hello. "Robin, please, we need your help. We need money for a lawyer for your father. My father got himself into this mess. This is all your fault. If you hadn't sold the house, none of this would have happened." I actually started laughing. My fault? I sold my own property to prevent you from stealing it, and somehow I'm the bad guy here? You've destroyed this family, Robin. Your father might go to prison, your pregnant sister can't buy an apartment, we can't make our mortgage payments anymore because you stopped helping us. You've robbed us of our entire future. I've robbed you? You were literally planning to forge my signature and steal my house. We're family, family helps each other. Family doesn't steal from each other, Mom. You're an ungrateful daughter, after everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Besides expect me to pay for everything while you plan to steal from me? She didn't have an answer for that. She just kept crying and calling me selfish and cruel. I don't want to have any relationship with any of you anymore, I told her. Don't call me again. After I hung up, I blocked all their numbers. Mom, Dad, Kayla, blocked, I was done. A month later, my Aunt Sarah called me. She's Mom's sister, and we've always gotten along pretty well. She doesn't usually get involved in family drama, so I was curious about why she was calling. Robin, I just wanted to let you know what's been happening with your parents and sister. Kayla and her husband moved in with your parents. They refinanced the house and put it in Kayla's name so they wouldn't lose it. She and her husband are making the payments now. I had to admit, that was pretty smart of Kayla, and pretty sneaky. My parents had always treated her like she was helpless, but apparently she was sharper than any of us gave her credit for. What happened with Dad's trial? He got 6 months probation and a fine for the disorderly conduct. No jail time, but he has to check in with a probation officer regularly. And when his boss at the mall found out about the arrest, he fired him. So Dad lost his security guard job over this. That was actually worse than jail time in some ways. At his age, finding another job wouldn't be easy. Also, Sarah continued, they had to borrow money from everyone in the family to pay for the lawyer. Then they used up all their retirement savings to pay everyone back. They're basically broke now. Well, I said, that's what happens when you try to steal from people. Sarah was quiet for a second. Robin, I'm not saying what they did was right. But they are still your parents. They stopped being my parents when they decided to forge my signature and steal my house. I understand why you're angry. Do you? Because they don't seem to. After we hung up, I felt this weird mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because justice had been served, I guess. But also sadness because my family was just gone now. Not that it had been much of a family to begin with. It's been 7 months since I blocked my family's numbers, and honestly, I've never felt better. I know that probably sounds cold, but it's the truth. For the first time in my adult life, I'm not constantly stressed about money or worrying about what crisis my family is going to dump on me next. The money from selling the house was a game changer. I paid off my mortgage completely, which freed up almost $1,500 a month that I'd been throwing at that thing. Between that and not paying my parents' mortgage anymore, I suddenly had over $2,000 extra every month. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have money left over after paying bills. I started putting most of it into savings, but I also decided to treat myself a little. I'd been driving the same beat-up Honda for 8 years, and it was definitely on its last legs. So I started shopping for a new car, nothing crazy, but something reliable and nice. I ended up with a Toyota Camry that's only 2 years old. It was weird, walking into that dealership and actually being able to afford what I wanted instead of just taking whatever the cheapest option was. The best part though is the peace. I didn't realize how much mental energy I'd been spending on my family's drama until it was gone. No more late-night calls about emergencies that somehow always required money. No more guilt trips about being selfish when I couldn't help with whatever they wanted this time. No more walking on eggshells, trying not to upset anyone. I've been going to therapy too, which has helped a lot. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, has been helping me understand how messed up my family dynamic really was. Apparently, there's a term for what they were doing to me: financial abuse. They'd trained me from a young age to believe that my worth as a family member was tied to how much money I could provide them. "You weren't their daughter," Dr. Martinez told me during one session. "You were their ATM that occasionally came to family dinners." That hit hard, but it was true. When I really thought about it, almost every conversation I'd had with my parents in the last few years had involved them asking for money in some way. Help with the mortgage, help with car repairs, help with Kayla's wedding, help with medical bills. And when I couldn't help as much as they wanted, I was selfish and ungrateful. The therapy has also helped me realize that what they did with the house wasn't just wrong, it was criminal. They were planning to commit fraud, forgery, and theft, and they acted like I was the unreasonable one for being upset about it. Normal families don't steal from each other. Normal families don't forge signatures. Normal families don't try to break into houses that don't belong to them anymore. I've heard a few updates through Aunt Sarah, who still calls me occasionally. She doesn't push me to reconcile with my family, which I appreciate. She just lets me know what's going on in case I want to know. Dad's probation ended last month, but he still hasn't found another job. Apparently, having an arrest record makes it pretty hard to get hired as a security guard, which was basically all he knew how to do. Mom has been working extra shifts at her part-time job at the grocery store, but it's not enough to cover all their expenses. Kayla had her baby, a little girl. Part of me felt sad when Sarah told me that, because I'm an aunt now and I'll probably never meet my niece. But then I reminded myself that Kayla made her choice when she decided to help steal from me. Actions have consequences. The most interesting update was that Kayla and her husband are apparently having problems. Turns out, living with your in-laws while trying to raise a newborn is stressful. Who would have thought? Sarah mentioned that Kayla's been complaining about feeling trapped in the house with my parents, and her husband has been talking about moving out. But since Kayla owns the house now and my parents can't afford to live anywhere else, it's complicated. I have to admit, there's a part of me that feels a little vindicated by all this. They were so sure that stealing my house was the perfect solution to all their problems. Kayla would get her dream apartment, my parents would get to feel like generous grandparents, and I would just quietly accept it because that's what I always did. Instead, Kayla ended up stuck in a house with my parents and a screaming baby. Dad lost his job and nearly went to jail, and they're all broke. Meanwhile, I'm debt-free, have a nice new car, and I'm saving up enough money that I might actually be able to take a real vacation next year. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty about how everything turned out. These are still my parents and my sister, after all. But then I remember how they laughed when they told me they were planning to forge my signature. I remember how confident they were that I'd just roll over and let them steal from me. I remember years of being treated like a bank account instead of a person. No, I don't feel guilty, I feel free. I've been thinking about maybe buying another house eventually. Nothing as remote as the mountain house, I want something closer to work. Maybe a little cottage with a garden. I've always wanted to try growing my own vegetables, but I could never afford a place with a yard before. It's funny how different my life feels now. 6 months ago, I was stressed all the time, barely making ends meet, and constantly dealing with family drama. Now I'm planning gardens and vacation trips. I'm sleeping better, eating better, and I actually look forward to weekends instead of dreading whatever crisis might come up. My coworkers have noticed the change too. My friend Jessica mentioned the other day that I seem happier and more relaxed lately. When she asked what was different, I just told her I'd simplified my life by cutting out some toxic relationships. I didn't go into details, the whole story is pretty crazy, and I'm not sure anyone would believe it if I told them. The hardest part is holidays and birthdays. I used to dread them because they usually meant spending money I didn't have on gifts for people who never seemed grateful for them. But now they just feel empty. I spent my birthday alone this year, which was actually kind of nice, but Christmas was harder. I ended up volunteering at a soup kitchen, which made me feel better about the whole thing. I know some people would say I should try to reconcile with my family, especially now that there's a baby involved. But I don't think they've learned anything from what happened. Based on what Sarah tells me, they still think I'm the villain in this story. They still think I'm selfish and cruel for not letting them steal my house. Until they can acknowledge that what they did was wrong, there's no point in trying to rebuild anything. Besides, I like my life now. I like having control over my own money. I like not having to worry about what my family is going to demand from me next. I like being able to plan for my own future instead of constantly bailing other people out of problems they created for themselves.